Hey, hey, everybody, welcome on in. I'm Jessica Putnam-Phillips, and we are here in the ClayShare studio in beautiful Vermont, actually very chilly Vermont. A little bit of snow happening and very, very cold out, but still, that's normal for November. It's what we expect. So tonight we are gonna do a little throwing together. We're gonna be throwing bowls on the pottery wheel. And I'm just going to walk through my process on how I throw. If you have any questions at any time, please feel free to ask. If you, are new to throwing, this will be a good thing for you to watch. If you're not and you've been throwing for a while, it's always good to have a refresher. So this could be that for you as well. And I've got a little bit of things to talk about. So we're going to be throwing the bowls, but we have some other things happening in ClayShare land. So hi, Sherry and everybody, and Leslie's here, and Tammy and Chrissy. I'm trying to say hi to everyone. Hello, Hugger Mugger's here. Wendy Clays is here. I'm seeing all the people coming in. So we are broadcasting on, I think, 7 platforms right now. It's a little crazy when we do our live broadcast, but it's all good and it's really fun. And I do try to address all the comments that I can see. But as you can imagine, I'm just going to put this out there now, I get hundreds to thousands of comments during these broadcasts, so I can't answer everybody. If I miss yours, it's not intentional. It just happens that way. Oh, Rachel says live at 5s are her favorite pretending to do work hour. It's totally doing work. Like, we're working. All right, so new in ClayShare world, we have 2 new hand building classes. They're actually a 2 and a 1. It's a giant 2-hour, 22-minute long class where I teach you how to make this beautiful hand-built bowl. And then I also have this beautiful bowl, and we glaze them together. We do the whole thing on both of these. So you learn every step from start to finish for both these bowls as 2 separate classes, but they're bundled into one. And I even give you the template for this right here to make your own cherry blossoms. So that's part of this class. I really wanted to do something fun and seasonal, so that's why we have the leaf bowl as well. And there's the bottom, so you can see the leaves are just scattered all along. And you can, right there, Kevin just shared the link for those of you watching over on ClayShare, can see that, and you can go ahead and click through and watch it. So what else do we have going on? We have our annual veteran scholarship. So as many of you know, I'm a veteran. My husband, who runs the company with me, is a veteran, and both of our fathers were veterans. So we started the Carol A. Putnam, it's my dad, and the Thomas E. Phillips, that's Kevin's dad, Memorial Scholarship, because both of our fathers were in the Navy. And so what that is a lifetime membership to ClayShare. So that gives you premium access to all of the ClayShare classes. And last year we did it the year before, so this is our 3rd year of doing it, and it's open to veterans and veteran caregivers. So the way you apply is you just go to clayshareresources.com and you fill out an application. You can nominate somebody and fill out an application for them. So go ahead and do that. The applications are open until November 30th, and we'll be announcing the winners on December 16th. So do that. If you know a veteran or a veteran caregiver that you think could use pottery classes for life, which I think everyone could use pottery classes for life, then go ahead and send them that way. Either do it for them or send them the link and have them sign up. It's free to sign up. It's free. It's completely free. So go ahead and fill out the application. When we started to do this, last year I was like, well, we'll do just two scholarships. One for a veteran, one for a veteran caregiver. But we got flooded with applications and I just couldn't pick. So we ended up doing 5 memberships. So I don't know how many I'm going to do. It's open-ended. So don't think there's only one person going to get a scholarship. So if you think that's a reason not to apply, and I tell people, even if you don't think that you'll get chosen, please apply. You don't know. So go ahead and do that. So that's the big news that we have at ClayShare. And so you still got a couple weeks to get those in, so do those. The other thing we're doing right now is we're giving away a 12-pack of Stroke and Coats from Mako and a jar of Light Flux and Dark Flux. We're giving away 4 of those. And that prize will be announced December 2nd. And all you do to be entered in that is sign up for emails on clayshare.com. That's it. If you're a premium member of ClayShare, you're already signed up. You don't have to do anything. that's my news. That's it. And if you want to get yourself some stroking coats or any of the fluxes, light or dark flux, you can go to clayscapespottery.com, use the code FLUX2020 and save 25% off the Mako stroking coats and fluxes. So that's the news. Whew. The news is out of the way. Let's throw some pots. I wanted to get through the news fast so we can make pots. You love my job. I do love my job too. I'm very lucky to do it. I've been doing this full-time 15 years. I've been making pots for 20 years. So I served in the military, discovered pottery, and kind of did both for a little while. And now I'm not in the military anymore. I'm just making pots. And that's what I do. I teach and make pots, and I love it. It's a lot of work, a lot of hours, but you know, when you do what you love, it's a different thing. It's totally different. It's a wonderful thing. So someone's asking, what's the difference between light and dark flux? So Mako makes this product called Flux. You can just think of it as a glaze. Light flux is a white. Dark flux is like a gray to brown color when you put it on top of another glaze, and it causes the glaze to melt and run a bit. And it's really a great product, and you can pretty much put it on any other glaze. And I did show how to use it last week in the broadcast, which is free. You can go watch that replay. And then we had a kiln opening this past Sunday, which you can go watch and see the results from that, and that's free as well. So you can check all that out. Okie dokie. So I've got a couple bowls here. You got your email notification at 5:04, better than 25 minutes into the broadcast, yes. So Monday mornings, we started this new thing for premium members. We have a Good Morning ClayShare. So it's basically a chat with Kevin and I, and we talk about things going on in ClayShare, what you like, what you want to see more of, suggestions you have, comments, any issues, whatever's going on, little previews of upcoming classes, and just hang out and chat. It's a really fun hour. And we've been having some issues with notifications going out 26 minutes late. So we've been working with Vimeo, who sends the announcements out, to try to get them to speed that up, because that's not acceptable. So some people are saying only 5:04. Well, that is much better. So let's get back to bowls. We're going to throw some bowls, and what is awesome about bowls? There's a lot awesome about bowls, actually. One, you can eat out of it, right? That's always awesome. The other thing is they make great forms to practice your throwing techniques and glaze testing. How's sound? Is sound good? Sound level's good?
Sound level's good.
Okay, I'm just checking because I couldn't remember if I turned my mic on.
I turned it on.
He turned it on for me. What would I do without him, right? So it's your get out of studio and away from hubby. So I'm going to show this on the smaller camera so that you all can see. Everybody on Insta, it won't make a difference, but everywhere else. So these are all made with Laguna B-Mix 5, mid-range stoneware, no grog, a nice smooth clay. This right here is based on a T-bowl design. That's this shape. And the glazes I used here are from Clayscapes. It's Starry Night and Turquoise, right here. Oh, this might be their teal. Correct me, Drew, if you're watching, because I want to make sure I get it right. And I dipped it like this, bloop, and then this side, bloop, and the bloop's important. Don't forget the bloops.
Gotta have the bloop.
Gotta have the bloop, and that's how I glazed this one right here. Sammy is asking, is there a code for Sharon Hoppy Designs? Sharon has not given me a code. I don't have one, hun. I'm sorry, but that would be, you know, we would love one. Maybe Sharon will do one. We'll see. This right here, a little different shape. This bowl right here is like my traditional ice cream bowl. And one thing when you're making bowls, you want to think about the end user, and you want to think about how that bowl is going to be used. So what I have here is a bowl that comes up, then has a little inward curve and flares back out. And what I love about this is when you're eating something, just imagine using a spoon and you're scraping that ice cream or cereal. You want to get every bit of it. You don't want to chase it up and out your bowl. You want to pull it up the sidewall and have that ice cream nicely and gently fall into the spoon, right? This bowl here with that beautiful curve does that for me. So I just scoop and there you go. So you get every bit of the ice cream or whatever you're eating. Ice cream is my thing of choice. Cereal is another one that I like a lot too. And here's a little bit larger bowl. This is definitely more of a cereal bowl. Like when I want some chocolate checks, this right here, this is the bowl because it's bigger and you can put more in it. Oh, let's talk about the glazes. This is my cobblestone, which you can get from Clayscapes Pottery. And then my spearmint dipped on top. This is my spearmint with my lake blue dipped on top. So that's what we have going there. How much clay for a small one and a large bowl? So I like to use about 1.25 pounds for a small bowl. You can do a 1 pound bowl if you want to. They get a little tiny when you do that. So 1.25 pounds is a nice, this size right here. And then something like this is about 1.75 pounds for this size here, or 2 pounds. You can go a little bigger. I like to do 1.25 pounds, 1.75 pounds, and sometimes 2. And you'll notice when you move from 1.75 pounds to 2 pounds, the bowl gets significantly bigger. It's only 1/4 pound of clay, but it definitely makes a difference. So these are just 3 different bowl shapes, and we're going to make probably something like this tonight. So we're going to go ahead and do this. I'll put this back here. So I've wedged up some clay. They are all B-mix, and I have them right over here. And what I did is I basically just cut some clay off, and I didn't really weigh it for this. These guys here, I checked because I wanted to know, because I know you're all going to ask, are 1 1/3 pounds. And then I have some that are 1.5 pounds. So 2 of them, these 2 here are 1.5. These 2 are 1 1/3. Usually, if I'm making a series of bowls, and I know I want them all to be the same, I'm going to go ahead and use the same amount of clay for each bowl. But if I'm just playing with form, and I just want to experiment with shape, then I'm not necessarily worried so much about how much they weigh. They don't have to be the exact same weight, but I want them similar. Hey Nancy, I'm glad you made it, and I'm glad you're loving ClayShare. Hello, Terry from Northern California. Looking forward to throwing. Yeah, I'll be trimming in our private broadcast. We won't be trimming in this broadcast, but the private broadcast, we are going to trim and alter bowls tonight. And if you are having trouble with bowls, I have a class on ClayShare.com on throwing bowls and trimming, the whole thing. I actually have smaller bowls and medium-sized bowls on there, so you can check that out. So this is wedged up. What is my favorite way to wedge? I do spiral wedging, and I could do it here on my wheel head, so you can see as I wedge. And if you watch my Intro to Throwing class, which is a free class on ClayShare, it's free. Go check out Intro to Wheel Throwing on ClayShare. I talk about different kinds of clay, and I show you how to wedge. And I show you multiple ways. So I do what's called a spiral wedge. And the reason this is called spiral, just wedge it up, is because when we look, we have this kind of spiral going on like a seashell. So you can do it that way. There's other ways to wedge. Some people will do what's called a bull or ram's head. Some people will do a slam wedging. And there's also a way you can slab cut, slam wedge. There's lots of ways to wedge. The key is to find one that works for you and use that. All right, so my clay is fairly soft. You know, if you're beginning throwing, or even if you've been throwing for 20 years, if your clay is really stiff and hard, it can be a struggle to throw it. Nobody wants to fight their clay, and particularly if you're a beginner. If your clay is really hard and dry, you're going to struggle. So my suggestion is to get softer clay. If your clay supplier can get you a softer clay, ask them and see if they can. Now this one doesn't have grog in it, which are little fine gritty particles. And I like this clay. I started with groggy clay when I was first learning, but this is my clay of choice now. So you slam wedge, Marie. Yeah, so there are so many ways to wedge. Just my suggestion is try different ones and pick the one that works the best for you. So I've just shaped this into a ball, and you see we have a little bit of a rounded end. We're just going to slam that down, and now I want to ground this, or I call it smacking it on center. I don't know if there's a technical term. I've been doing this my whole pottery career, but you basically use the heel of your palms. See, that's what we're trying to avoid. Let me fix that. Let's put it back down. We're slamming it down, and then we're using the heels of our palms to set it. So we have our clay on there. Where did I get these bats from? These are made by Studio Pro Bats. They're here in Vermont. They are an amazing company. Clayscapes Pottery does carry them, and I believe they're part of the Explore 10 discount where you can save 10% off. So you can check them out. It has inserts. Here are the inserts right here. And they're great because you can just pop the insert out and not touch your pot at all. So you're using clay all the same weight, but it still doesn't turn out the same shape. That's with practice, hon. You'll get there, though. You know, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to center. And you want to keep your elbows in. And you're going to cone up. So I'm using the heels of my right palm and cupping it with my left hand. And then press down. Now, I'm a very wet thrower. So you'll see me using a lot of water. And it just depends if you like to use a lot of water or not. If you dry throw and you're starting, what can happen is your hands will stick to the clay. See, cone up. And then compress down. And I'm going to tell you, it took me a long time to learn how to center. Every day practicing for about 4 or 5 hours a day. And it took me, I think, 2-3 weeks to center. So if we count all those hours, that's 4 times 7, so 28 hours times 3. So basically almost 100 hours to get it down. And even then, and even now, I have days where centering is not happening. Just for whatever reason, I just can't center. So here we're making our little cake. That's what I call this shape here. And I would say it's about 3 inches in diameter, approximately 2 3/4. So that's good. If you're beginning and you're struggling with centering and you're really frustrated and you just want to make something, I always tell my students, just make something then. Like, it doesn't have to be perfectly centered. Just get that out of your head, because that can be a block. If you're thinking that it has to be perfect, it can prevent you from moving forward. So let's find the center. I'm just going to let my thumb roll around and make a little depression. And now we're going to open up the clay. Why do I compress down so many times? Because I want to make sure it's nice and stuck on the bat. I also want to make sure it's centered, and I'm getting rid of any air bubbles that could potentially be in there, Barbara. So there's a thing called wedging on the wheel. So we wedge with our hands sometimes on a board, but when you wedge on the wheel, that's why we cone up and press down. And what you're doing is any air bubbles that are in there are going to come to the surface. So it's a way to check to make sure somehow there's not air in my clay. So that's why I do that. So now we're going to pull back with our fingers, and then we're going to compress down as I come in. And I want to make a curve. You can make flat bottom bowls if you want to, but I want to make a curved bottom bowl. So I'm just going to keep going back in with my finger and compressing. Now I leave my bottoms a little thick because I like to trim a big foot. So I would say my bottoms to this, they're definitely thicker than 1/4 of an inch, but they definitely are not 1/2, so probably somewhere in the middle of that. So I just do a few compressions. And I have this beautiful curve, and we'll refine this curve after we make the side walls. But that's a good start. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the wall. Now you slow down my wheel. When I'm centering and I'm opening up, I go fast. When I'm pulling the walls up, you need to slow down. You need to slow the wheel down. And you need to be moving your hands at the same speed as your wheel head is spinning. It can take a little practice to get there. But you'll get there, I guarantee. Now we're going to compress the rim. I like to remove the excess water from the inside. Just Just go in my sponge. So I pulled up my height first because you have to get your height established before you can get your width. If you are working on your width and then think you can go up, you can't. It's just how it works. You've got to do your height first, then your width. But if you thin it out too much, you can't make your pot very wide. So you have to leave material in here for the width. So now we're going to start to belly out to the side, and I'm just going to use my fingers, sponge on the outside, and we're just going to pull up and go out. Just like that. So that was one shaping pull. So Michelle's a very wet thrower, and now that it's getting cold in Michigan, you're using less water. I live in Vermont. It's very cold here. What I do is in the winter, I keep a fish tank heater. And I actually think I shared that in a tip somewhere, but I keep that in my throwing water so your water stays warm. You can do that. They have submersible fish tank heaters. So you should get yourself one of those, put it in your water, and it will keep your water from getting cold when you're throwing, and it'll keep your hands warm. I don't have running water in the studio, so I have to bring water in from my house, and it will cool off during the day. So the water in my throwing bowl, if the water that I'm going to use to fill my throwing bowl is cold, I have an electric tea kettle in the studio just for heating up water. So I'll pour the water in the electric tea kettle, and then I will go ahead and pour that water into my bowl. All right, so we're getting close to done as far as shaping for this little guy. Let's go ahead and grab a rib. You can use any rib you want. Some people don't use ribs. I love them. I like these red ones from Cheryl Mud Tools for clays like B-Mix and porcelain. They're very flexible. So we're going to get our outside curve. And then flare that top rim out a little bit. Round that over. And then I'm going to go on the inside, and I'm just going to take my rib. This isn't the one I like to use, the one I want's in my hand building stuff. And I'm just going to come down the wall and compress. It's in this cup over here. No, it's in that cup with that ruler. I don't think you can get to it. But because it has a nice rounded, yeah, I don't think you can get there. You can't get there. So, no, so we're just going to use this, and you just ride it down the inside wall, and then you can bring it into the center. And what that does is it refines that inside curve, smooths it out. You see all the slip that it's picked up? I like to take that off. There's no need for that to be there. It just makes the clay wetter. There. So that's one bowl shape. I might even flare this out a little more. So I'm just going to kind of roll it over onto my finger just a bit to make this more pronounced. And you can compress this rim. You could use a chamois. You could use a piece of plastic. You can use the webbing between your fingers. That's a natural. Already everybody has that, right? So you can just use that bit. You know, if you're somebody that's really a lot of webbing between your fingers, you are a natural potter. Did you know? Like that's your calling, because you can compress the rim of anything without any other tools. You just have it built in. You love your red rib. Can't live without it. It's my go-to. I don't know what I would do if someone said you can either have a red or a yellow, pick one, because I do love their yellow rib. I'd probably go with the red, because for throwing, definitely. So I'm just cleaning up the foot a little bit, but you don't want to take too much of this clay off. The thickness of the clay down here right now is helping to support the walls of the bowl. And if you trim it all away now, you might have difficulty with your bowl not being supported. So, yeah, it's something to think about. Now, we just had an amazing Doug Peltzman workshop, and it was about handles, which you can still sign up for and take because it's a virtual workshop that's there forever. And Doug does this really cool thing where he cuts away. So he'll put his piece, his wire down up against his piece and cut away from him. I always cut towards me. I've never cut away, but I'm going to try it tonight. So we're going to see if I ruin my pot right now. Hopefully I don't. So we're just going to cut. Didn't really make much of a difference. So yeah, now he has a good reason for doing that. And I'm not going to tell you why. Those of you who watch the workshop know what I'm talking about, but I'm not giving it away. So it's in the workshop. He explains why he does that. But I throw on these little bats. So there we have our bowl. Look how cute that is. Now this will shrink. Look how fat bellied that guy is. And all the foot down here, all this like meaty bit down here, we're going to trim that all away later, tomorrow actually. But in my premium broadcast later, I threw a couple bowls. So we're going to be trimming those afterwards. We'll get there. We'll get there. So when you're using these bat systems, when you're storing them, any of them, you want to always make sure there's a bat insert stored in the outer bat. You never want to store them separate or this empty, because what happens is as this dries, it could warp. It needs the bat inside it. So that's a little tip I have for those of you that are using these bat systems. Let's go and get another one. So this is another 1 1/3 pound lump of clay. So Katie says she can center. Will you scroll back down? So I can keep up with it. But the bottom of your cake's always flared out. You try to clean it up, but don't always succeed. It causes the top half of your cake to be kind of mushroom over the bottom half, which causes a problem with pulling. So I will show you, Katie, when we do this, what I do to the sides. There's some things you can do. We can work on that for you. All right, let's go ahead and smack this in. And if you haven't watched my intro to wheel throwing or my bowl throwing class, Katie and anybody else there, check that out. How much clay do I leave on the bottom? That's a good question. I can't give you a dimension. There's not a set dimension. I'm going to show you on the camera. I don't know if that's helpful. It doesn't really matter what size. Oh, it's too close. It's too close. Can it focus there? Come on, you can do it. I believe in you.
There you go.
So if you look at this right here, you'll see this little lump of clay. And it depends. Bigger bowls, you need to leave a lot more. When I'm throwing big sinks, like a big sink bowl, and you're using like 14 pounds of clay, you're leaving a couple pounds down here because that bowl is huge. You need lots of support. So you're leaving like 2 or 3 pounds of that clay just to support your bowl. So it depends. Little guys like this don't need a lot. It's hard to explain though. It's hard to do a measurement for that. So, all right, so we got this one on there. Let's go ahead and, so Tara, you find using the rib inside difficult. It does take a bit of practice. Keep at it. You can always just use your fingers. Don't necessarily have to use a rib. You can just use your fingers if you want to. And so when I'm throwing and it's just me in the studio, I go totally on autopilot. I don't really think about what I'm doing, I just do. But when I'm teaching, I'm always trying to be aware that, you know, I want to help you all do better at throwing. So I try to explain everything step by step. But when I'm by myself in the studio, you just do, you know how that is. So Katie was saying she has a cake problem with the bottom being flared out. Is it kind of like this? If so, you can use the heel of your palm and press in at the bottom while still pressing out and down at the top. So I'm kind of just holding it. My fingers, do you see how we're doing this? So you end up with something like that. So you're just kind of pressing it into the shape you want. And if you have too much clay down here, this is called the apron, by the way. In pottery terms, that bit of clay that's at the bottom of a pot is called the apron. So you can take your finger if you have too much and it's causing you problems, and you can just scrape it off like that if it's an issue. Peggy says she knows why. It was a great workshop. It was a great workshop. And I love that that workshop's there forever, for anybody to sign up anytime they want. And it's not just about handles. I think the name is misleading because he does throw pots. He does some teapots. He didn't throw a teapot, but he puts a spout on one and everything. All right, so we found our center. Let's go ahead and press down. So here's the thing, when we're making a bowl, if you want a flat bottom bowl, you can go down as deep as you want, as to the depth of your foot, right? And then you can just pull back, kind of like making cups or making a cylinder. But with a bowl, we want a really nice, graceful curve, right? So you go down, but you don't want to pull straight back. You want to pull up when you come back because you want to start putting that curve in now, that slight curve. So Rachel says she has the wheel turned the same way I do, but you center using the opposite hands, same technique. Are you strange? Not at all. There's no right way to make pottery. There's none. There's absolutely none. The thing is, if you're making pots and it's working for you, then you're doing it correctly. There's no right way, not at all. What I share, if it's not what you do, but what you're doing is working for you, then do what you do. Don't change, not at all. You keep doing what works for you. Only switch if you're struggling. And that's what when I see somebody making pots, I'm more than willing to adapt my technique. I'm more than willing to learn from them. So somebody's doing something and it seems to me like it'd be an easier technique for the thing that I'm doing, I'll try it. If it works, I'll start putting that in my process. If it doesn't, I'll be like, well, that's cool. I'm glad it works for them. Didn't quite work for me, but it's still valid. It's just not the one that works for me. So can I explain a little bit more about finding the center? I can, and Anna, I have a free class on ClayShare.com, which is Intro to Wheel Throwing. Go watch that after this. It's free. It's fabulous. It's full of a lot of talking about that because this isn't really a centering class and there's a lot that goes into it. But I'll talk about it a little more in the next bowl I throw for you. But I think what you want, check out the class. It's free. It's free. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and pull up our walls. So you're scraping the clay up off the wheel head and we're pulling it up. Because these are small enough bowls, I don't have to leave a bunch of clay. But if I was doing a big bowl, and we did a big bowl wheel throwing. Goodness gracious, was that this past spring? We did big bowls. Yeah, we did. We did a bunch of wheel throwing this past spring. In ClayShare Con, did I throw big bowls for ClayShare Con? Maybe.
I think they might have been big ones.
They might have been big bowls. Maybe. And I see there's a lot of questions about the bat system. This is a Studio Pro bat system. It's a bat that has inserts, which is really fabulous because you just pop the little inserts out and you don't have a ton of storage. You don't have to worry about them taking up a ton of space in your studio. So let's go ahead and refine the shape a little more. I'm going to give this one a nice big belly. Flare it out a bit. Compress the rim. The reason we compress our rim is because it helps keep the pot from flaring out too much and helps it hold its shape. So let's go ahead and shape the pot. Anna says, I'm going to watch that instead of making dinner. You know, that happens to me and then dinner ends up being like ramen noodles, right? I found this great gluten-free Oricey makes a good one. So those of you who are gluten-free, don't think you are limited and can't have ramen. There are options. So I'm just shaping. This is more of like a little mini cauldron, this one here. So bowls give you a chance to play with shape. And what I do is I will play with the shape and make 4 or 5 bowls and intentionally try not to make the same shape. I want to play with the form. I want to see what I can come up with, you know? And then I'll go ahead and pick one I really, really like, and I'll focus on making those. So when you sit down to throw bowls, what you want to do is you either have a shape in mind or you come up with a shape, and then you work from that shape and just play with that shape. And what will happen is you'll refine it to the point where you really like that form, or you'll do it to the point where you're sick of it and you'll come up with a new form. So I'm going to go ahead and compress the inside here and just shape that with this red rib. There we go. It just gives this beautiful curve on the inside of the bowl. This one's gonna have a great big foot on it. So it might look clunky right now and bottom heavy, but it won't be. And I definitely want to flare it out a little more. And I'll use my rib, put that right up against it, and I'll just kind of wrap it over the rib. And then compress that rim. I don't have any plastic cut that I could use. That's why I'm using my webbing. So Arlita, when she's making cylinders, she says, when you're pulling, you start to shape them, and when you get to the shoulder, it's thinner and twisting. So it's too thin. Yeah, it's going to twist because it's too thin. When you are making them, you need to leave more clay. So just be conscious of that and leave more clay so that it won't get too thin when you get to the top and twist on you. Because that's exactly what happens. The other thing that happens, depending on the clay you're using, is clay gets exhausted, meaning saturated with water. And the clay particles can only hold so much water before they basically start to break back down. And if you put too much water in your clay, it will do that, and that can encourage it to twist and torque like that as well too. So thinness and too much water would be the culprits there. So I would think maybe working time, you know, work a little faster so that you're not putting so much water on the piece. That would be my suggestion. Or try not to make it too thin. That looks pretty good. I actually want to, looking at it, so I have to look at it from the side, right? And this was something else Doug talked about in the workshop, why he throws standing up, which those of you who watched it, you know, because when you're standing, you don't have to hurt your body and wrench over like this. You can just squat down, which is brilliant. So we have this guy right here. Go ahead and cut it off. I'll just pull this guy out. Now I use a screwdriver to pop these out. Sometimes they're a little difficult to get out. They do make these things called bat lifters, but I had a screwdriver in the studio, so why would I buy a bat lifter when I have a perfectly good screwdriver, right? No need, not at all. You know, you can make your process as simple or as complex as you want. I love pottery tools. I have a thing about them, so I tend to buy more than I need. I don't need all the things I use in the studio to make what I make. I can get by with just a few things. But I like them. I like to use them. It's fun. It's, you know, this is my job and also my hobby. I don't really have anything else that I do. This is my favorite thing. So for me, trying out new tools and techniques, that's like what I would consider my hobby. So I have a lot of things, but you don't necessarily need all those things to make great pots. Actually, you don't need any of those things to make great pots. Really, very little. Okay, we're going to move on up to a little bit bigger lump of clay. This one here is 1.5 pounds. So we're going to get a bigger bowl out of this, right? Can I show slowly how I transition near the top? Yeah, I can slow down when I get there. Jennifer uses a screwdriver too, exactly. Because military veterans like us, right, Jen? We're like, why would I buy something when I can just use this thing I have floating around in the studio? Okay, that one's on. So I'm going to go ahead and compress inward and cone up. And then come back down. Now there's so many different ways to center. When I teach kids to center, I'll have them do it this way, like this, cup their hands in. And I do think I show that possibly as an option in my intro to wheel throwing class because it's a little easier for beginners, especially for kids with, you know, smaller hands. So let's go ahead and compress it up one more time. And then back down. Nona says, I always do different things. I am always trying different things. It's true. It's true. I like to try different things. So in this clay, I can feel an air bubble. So what I will do, we're going to keep coning up and down. I'm not going to go quite so far down. I'm going to cone up a little higher because I want to work that air bubble out, and it will eventually pop on its own. If not, you can poke it with a needle tool. So we're going to go until, sometimes when you wedge your clay, the object is to get the air out, but sometimes you introduce air to it. So that's something to think about. If you're wedging and you're getting a lot of air in your clay, you might want to consider changing up the way you wedge, because you could be introducing air. I see a lot of folks on there love tools too. I know, I love them. I'm not going to deny it. I can get by with less. I could, but it's fun, so why would I? Right? I don't know, you know. Anyhow, okay, so we're going to find our center, and it doesn't matter which hand you use. Then press down in. Sometimes I will put my index finger on my thumb and let that press down. Sometimes I'll do my middle finger, whatever you're more comfortable with. Sometimes I'll use both. If I'm doing a really big bowl, sometimes I'll use the whole hand. Like all 3 fingers will go in there. Just depends. So I'm going to go ahead and pull back a bit. Compress. Sometimes you'll get a lot of clay come up like that. A little tornado of clay will come up. It's not a big deal. You know, you've got to get that clay compressed, and if you're scraping it out like that, it will work. So it's not a... Don't fret. Don't fret it. When I was learning to throw, my professor was great. He would sit down at the wheel and he'd throw something and he'd be like, okay, you need to make 10 of these in 2 weeks. That was your instruction. You got to watch him throw something once. That was all you got. There was not YouTube. There was not internet like it is today. There was not videos. There was books, and you might get a few good still photos, but you had no source of information to learn. And so we would be set off on our own to make dozens and dozens of bowls to get 10 good ones in 2 weeks. And they really weren't that great by the end of 2 weeks, I got to tell you. I got some of those bowls floating around. They're all right. They're not great. So my thing is, you know, you need to just put the time in to get something right. If you're trying to throw and you're struggling, just don't think 2 or 3 is going to get you there. You really got to just keep at it until you get it. I mean, it takes 1,000 hours, isn't that what they say? 1,000 hours to master something. So, I don't know how many years that equals to.
I thought it was 10,000.
Is it 10,000 hours? Okay, 10,000 hours.
Or maybe that's just what they told us in the Marines, so we wouldn't complain about doing stuff over and
Okay, that could be. I'm not saying you need to spend 10,000 hours making bowls, but I'm saying if you've made 5 bowls and they're not coming along, don't be discouraged. Just keep going. You'll get there, right? You've got to give yourself a break and just keep practicing. You'll get there eventually. All right, so we're going to talk about the inward curve. I was going to go slow, right? I'm going to go slow when we do this. So I'm going to go ahead and add some volume, and I'm just pressing out from the inside. And now I'm going to do the transition to do the inward curve, and I'm just going to use my finger, and I'm going to press in with the outside finger. I'm not using the sponge. I usually do. And then I'm just going to roll up, and I'm actually using my inside hand to roll it over. So there we have this really nice transition where the body of the bowl comes up and transitions into that rim where it has that little curve. Right there. Now we're going to use the rib to refine that. 10,000 hours is what you heard too. Okay. I don't know how many hours I've spent making pots. 20 years. The last 15, 60 or so hours a week. I don't know. I have no idea. Who knows? I don't make pots every waking moment of my life either. but I think about them every moment. That's for sure. So I'm just pressing in with the rib. See? Scraping away all of that slip. Press the rim. Let's go ahead and do the inside. Let's go down along. So in my ClayShare wheel throwing classes, the camera is set up so you have a side view, and you also have a down inside view. So you get to see the top down view, which I think is really important. I'm just going to compress this there. How's that? That's all right. I think I want to flare this out a tiny bit more. And I actually have a rib I love using. Hold on, I'm going to grab it. Here we have a really cute MKM rib. So a full-time job is 2,080 hours a year.
That's a week at ClayShare.
That's like a one, yeah, right? That's a week. So I've done this for 15 years full-time. So that's like 30,000 hours. Lucky me. All right, so this rib has this great curve, and I wasn't being sarcastic with lucky me. I love what I do. Sometimes I kid around because, you know, you got to have a sense of humor in life. So this rib, I'm using this to make the curve. I'm basically just pressing it up against the bowl, and that shape is translating into the clay there. I've got a ton of clay down there. See all that? I'm going to be trimming a big old foot on this, I think. I have a feeling. There's a big apron of clay. Let's take a bit of this away. There's more than we need. Just cut that away. I'm just using my wooden clay knife, and then I cut the excess away. There. That looks pretty good. All right, we're gonna do, where are we at for time? We do one more. We'll do one more. Depending on what your job it is, a part-time job can feel like a full-time job. You are absolutely right. Yeah, it does. Everything depends on so many variables in life, right? I mean, I work a lot of hours, but I love what I do. So, yeah, it's a lot of work, but if I wasn't doing this as my job, I'd want to do it anyways. So, might as well be my job, right? Got my next insert in, ready to go. Okay, we got one more lump of clay. Put that over there. So I've been chatting a lot when I'm throwing, usually in an hour. I could probably do 10 bowls in an hour. Now, other people might be able to do 20. It just depends. And I don't think that the number of bowls you can make in an hour is like a measure of how good you are. I think it's just how many bowls you make in an hour, right? Just like, you know, how many hot dogs you can eat in 3 minutes. It's that kind of thing. More isn't always better. All right, got a lump of clay, throwing it on the bat, smacking it in. Okay, so CLL has a question about making the 2167 clear. What silica do I use? I use 325 mesh silica. That's the silica you want to use for making glaze, is 325 mesh. That's what you want. Terry, your first bowls are so bad. Sometimes you're not sure you've progressed. I'm sure you have. I'm sure you have. And then Brenda's saying she didn't receive a notification yet. It's lucky she set her phone. Yes, it is. Always set your phone for ClayShare broadcasts because apparently notifications could be kind of iffy right now, huh? That's terrible.
Yeah, I did hear back from Vimeo, and they're working with the with all the email providers to get their notifications to not be delayed.
So we reached out to Vimeo, and they are working on that. Hopefully that won't be an issue in the future. We will see. All right, we got our clay. We are centered enough. So I'm going to tell you all a secret. My clay isn't always centered. That's right, you heard it. Sometimes it's just almost centered. Not exactly centered. This is centered. I mean, you can tell. You can tell, right? If it wasn't centered, it'd be a little wobbly. But sometimes I'll be working and I'm like, you know what? This thing doesn't have to be centered. I'm going to make this pot, and we're just going to go with it, and that's the way that happens. I made a very wide bottom. Didn't mean to make it so wide on this. I wanted to make a cute, teeny little foot, but I opened it a little too far. You can't do anything about it. If you open it a little further than you mean to, it's set. You just gotta go with it. It'd be a low, wide bowl. That's right. Kathleen, you go to sleep with pots in your head and wake up with pots in your head. Yep. Yeah. Same here. And you know what? Here's the thing. When I first started years ago, I was like, I loved it so much I couldn't stop thinking about it. And here it is 20 years later, and I still love it so much. And what I really love, and this is something I've felt since basically the beginning, is I'm really loving the pots I'm making now. I'm really enjoying these pots. But the pots that really get me excited are the ones I'm going to make like 5 years from now. The fact that I'm still going to be making pottery in 5 years, and there will be a noticeable difference in what the pots look like. And that idea, the fact that I will still be making pottery and that I will have progressed 5 more years in skill level, that is the thing that really, really excites me. It's a thing that, like 5 years ago, I look at the pots I was making, and they seem a lifetime ago. They do. They seem like that was a whole nother person making them compared to the pots I make now. So I made this one a little taller, going for a little taller bowl. Remember, you have to get your height put in first, and then your width. Because you can't make it taller once it's wide. You just can't pull the clay up. It just won't work. You got to put your height in first. So this right here would be a great planter shape. Let's do something different. We are going to use a wooden rib to do our pulling. When I throw in the studio, I usually use ribs for shaping from the get-go. So let's go ahead and shape this bowl up. Slow the wheel down. Nice, beautiful, gradual curve happening here. Get to the top. I'm not pulling past here. I'm stopping. Let me compress. Because if you pull all the way to the top, you'll thin it out too much. Compress that. Let's do another shaping pull. So just pressing in from the inside. The rib is sliding along the outside and allowing me to shape. The inside of this has a perfect bowl bottom. It looks awkward from the outside, I think, because I'm going to trim a lot away. But it's like a bubble bowl. It's like that perfect little bubble. And you can do an inward curving rim. So you know how I go in and then back out with the flare? You don't have to. You can leave your rim curved like this if you want to. This shape. If you like, you see on the outside how we have this beautiful curved shape coming up? It's like this continuous arc. You can leave that there. You do not have to change it. You don't have to do the in-out thing. What will happen is you're going to develop a style. And even if you do develop a style, you're never locked in. Like there's no rule saying you cannot change your style. Many potters do. You get to the point where the thing you've been making for a while and what you're known for, you feel like you want to expand your own horizons, right? You want to make more things. So you try something different. How do you determine how much to open to get the right foot? So Terry, it's basically when you're looking over, it's a hard one to answer, right? Over time, you get familiar with what 1.5 pounds of clay will look like when it's a bowl, or 1.25 pounds of clay. And you know that's going to be a fairly small bowl. I always like to think of the foot as 1/3 of the diameter of the rim. You know, I like a little cute foot with a bigger rim. That's my own aesthetic though. Some people like to have a foot that's half the diameter of the rim. Some like it 3/4 the diameter. There's no set in stone rule. This bowl is a beautiful shape. Just gonna have to say that right there. It's got this really lovely curve, which I'm going to just let stay.
Everybody's loving that shape.
You're loving the shape. Yeah, so on the rim, we can let it stay this nice angled rim, just like that. Just leave it like that. You don't have to do anything to it. I might actually just slightly press in. Clay, see when your clay gets dry, did you see how it skipped? The clay is dry, it'll skip. Let's get this. Yeah, this is a nice one. It's beautiful. That's a beautiful bowl. I don't usually do bowls like this. This is very minimalist, very simple and elegant in its design. I usually get more complex, but you know what? This is very appealing to me. So I'm going to let it be. Just going to let it be. Let's just go ahead, and I do want to use my sponge on the edges just to get rid of any sharpness. But I don't want to get rid of that beautiful angle. There. Yeah, that's pretty sweet. That's good. There's a lot of stuff down here, but a lot of that is going. So I made this one, didn't I say, a little wider than I wanted? It's going to be perfect. So funny. I thought I made it a little too wide, but by the time I trim this, which will be tomorrow, and I'll do a little video for that. I'll put that up when I trim this so that y'all can see the trimming of the bowls we make. Because I can't do everything tonight. It's got to sit. So probably by tomorrow, I'll lightly cover it with plastic. I'll be able to trim this. Little wad of clay stuck to the side. Get that off there. Did you see that? It bumped it. Sometimes when you're pulling this stuff off here, a little bit of it will get up on the side of your piece. There. Okay, we're not going to mess with it anymore because you know what happens. You keep fiddling with it and you'll ruin the shape. So don't do that. Let's go ahead and cut it off. Give you a close-up of it. Oh, a stemless margarita bowl. Yes, it could be. So there we have that shape. Look at how gorgeous that is. You imagine all this stuff here trimmed away. It's going to be really nice. So let's go back to the front camera.
Yeah, let me roll you back.
Yeah, we'll hold that up so you can see. See that foot right there? About a third at least of that is going to go. When you look down inside, I can see that the foot is only going to be about that wide. So I don't know if you can imagine a foot that's only about that wide. We're going to cut away quite a bit when we trim this. And we'll trim some from the side so that we'll have a nice deep foot, and then we'll have the side of the bowl. So that one came out really sweet. And we've got the others here. So let me just grab the bowl board. This is a wear board. It is 3/4 inch birch plywood. That it was just a strip that I had left from making my hand building work boards. So wear boards are good. I have found that the length of this one will fit 5 of these little Studio Pro Bat inserts on it. I only have 4 on it right now, but you can fit 5 comfortably on one of these. And they're easy to store because you can take the board, right, in your studio and sit on shelves. And then when you need to trim, you just pull the board out. And then you trim your pieces, put them back on the board without the Studio Pro Bat insert because you don't need it anymore. And then, you know, make another batch of pots. So you can get 5 on a board. And when I sit down to throw, I usually make 10 because 5 go on a board. So it's like make 2 boards fall at a time. And do I ever throw bowls off the hump? Small bowls? Yes. And I do have a class on ClayShare showing you how to throw small, like soy sauce bowls off the hump. They would have to be smaller than a pound for me to throw off the hump. Yeah. But something this size, I'm not going to throw off the hump because that's for 1.25 pounds to 1.5 pounds bowl. If I want to make 3 bowls off the hump, I have to center 4.5 pounds of clay and then section off a bit. That's just, it's just silly for me to try to do that. But making little ones, absolutely, positively. Yeah, little things, always do it off the hump. Unless I'm using my mini pottery wheel, my super itsy bitsy guy, and then it's a whole different thing. So some days Lindsay throws and she just can't get anything good, and then others you manage good bowls. Why is that? It's just, I have the same thing. We have good days, we have bad days. I don't know why. I don't know if it's your head is somewhere else. You try to make one and it's not working, so you get frustrated. Because it happens to me too. I have days that I come to the studio and I'll try to throw something and it's just not working. I'm not feeling it. The shapes aren't coming along. It's not what I want to do. So you know what I do when that happens? I stop. I don't force myself to make pots, or at least not that pot. I stop throwing and I work on something else. I always have something else going in the studio. So maybe I trim pieces from the day before. Maybe I just completely stop and I hand build something. If I'm really at a loss, maybe I'll do some pinch pots, some little pinch animals or something. Just step away from it, and it might only take you 30 minutes, an hour. You might feel better. Try throwing again. If it's not working, just say, okay, today is not that day. I'm not throwing. It happens to all of us. Don't worry about it. Tomorrow's another day. You'll probably be fine at throwing the next day, right? So try it. All right, so there we have it. We threw some bowls. If you want more awesome wheel throwing classes, check out my Intro to Wheel Throwing class on ClayShare.com. It's free, so you can watch that. Also, I have a making small bowls, making a vase, making a mug, making a cup. Those are all intro classes. They are really good for helping, every single one of them, I talk about centering, so they're good for helping you with centering and throwing skills when you're starting. So if you're struggling, any one of those beginner classes that I have will help you out. They really are shapes that you can use a lot to refine your skills, and this is definitely one of them. So, okay, that's what we have for tonight, everybody. Remember, go ahead to ClayShareResources.com. If you're a veteran, please sign up for the Veteran Scholarship. If you're a caregiver of a veteran, please sign up for that too. You know, we want to give away scholarships. We know making pottery helps from firsthand experience. We know it helps so much in many ways, and we want to provide that for anybody that we can. So check that out. And next week, next week is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. That means it's time for my annual 12 Gifts for Potters. This is the 4th year I'll be doing it. Yes, it's sung to the tune of 12 Days of Christmas. Yes, I sing it. And it's full of 12 gifts that are awesome to give potters, or gift yourself, right? Give yourself a gift. So that'll be next week. All right, everybody, have a great night. Be sure to check out Clayscapes Pottery, 25% off stroke and coats. And if you haven't signed up for our emails on ClayShare.com, do so you'll be entered in that giveaway. Everybody else, premium members, I'll see you at 6:15. Everybody else, until next week, make some great pots. Bye, everybody.